She Said, He Said is sponsored by Times Media Company and Lee Enterprises. Our show is recorded each week at Creative Space Place Studios in Hobart, Indiana.
You're listening to She Said, He Said with Karen and Jerry Davidge, a potpourri of everything that has to do with relationships and the baggage that comes with it, because there's a lot to unpack. All right, so in the studio today of She Said, He Said, we have Jamie Fankhauser of Valparaiso. Welcome to the studio.
Thank you.
The basis of the show, this particular show, is what parents will do for their kids. They will move mountains for their kids, and you have moved some mountains for your child. So if you can tell our listeners a little bit of some backstory of your daughter and the world that you've created for her.
Well, thank you. Well, first, I have two big girls.
Okay.
32 and 29, and they're biological.
Okay.
But then Ava came along in my life when I was working as a nurse, and I adopted her at birth. And through that process, well, first of all, we knew early on that she was autistic. And off of the autism, then came a Hashimoto's diagnosis, where her thyroid stopped working. And I would say something for about 15 to 20 years. I was supposed to make soap someday. And when her diagnosis arrived with the Hashimoto's, I felt as if the time had arrived to try and make soap, because I heard raw goat's milk could help your skin.
Okay.
If it was made properly. And so I attempted and succeeded, shockingly. And she started using it, and it cleared up her skin, so much so that people started asking if they could buy bars of my soap. So it's a strange part of my relationship to her, but the backstory then becomes the now story is that off of that, I thought as the business started to grow and people started wanting our products, that it was for her to have employment as an autistic young adult. And so I kept going through the doors thinking that it was for her, period. But my journey has always, what I tell people all the time is my journey is not a period, it's a comma. And then the Lord adds something else to my journey or my story. So it wasn't just for Ava, but as I walked it out, then I realized there was a whole community of moms and dads that wanted their autistic son or daughter to have employment and to be understood in an environment that was safe and comforting. And so, hence, then came Bun's Soapbox.
So, Jamie, take us back, if you would, a few years before that. You had an interest in making soap. That was just ruminating in your head for a while, right?
Yes.
But then something triggered that, whether it was God, now Ava. It made a purpose. You had to create this. You had to make it happen. You couldn't put it on the back burner anymore.
No.
You had to make it happen.
No, I would just be driving along in a car one day and looking out the window and be like, I'm supposed to make soap someday.
That's what I meant. That's what I meant.
And people would be like, okay, make soap.
Yeah,
no,
right.
I'm not supposed to make soap yet.
It's not time yet.
It's not time yet.
So Ava made it that time then. When
she made it the time,
She made it that time. Isn't that amazing?
Yes.
So she transformed your world, and in turn, you've transformed hers.
Absolutely.
Is that accurate?
Very accurate.
Wow.
2 lives created for one purpose, but each of the purposes in her life versus my life look different. And then it didn't end just with Ava or my. It also is other people's. And it's not even just the young adults who we employ at Bun's Soapbox, but it's also their families that are impacted. It's the parents that think that their kids won't have a place to go or to work or call their second home or their community or whatever you want to call it. And so it's this trickle effect of one person, then 2 people, then 5, then 10, then 20. That's life.
And I saw this firsthand 3 months ago exactly almost when I visited Bun's Soapbox and wrote a column about it. Wait, 3 years ago.
I was like,
sorry,
wow,
3 years
I don't
ago.
remember. You came in?
Yeah, sorry, 3 years ago this month. Or I meant to say 3 years ago this month when I visited that and I saw that in action. And these workers you had, they were all so determined and so serious at getting their task done, their job done, right?
Very focused.
Very focused. And I got to watch that in action. And Karen always says, since when I wrote that column, then the pandemic hit and everything stopped.
Everything stopped.
And she's convinced.
I'm convinced.
She always told me this for 3 years
This is
now.
true. If obviously if the pandemic didn't happen, a lot of lives would have
Right.
been different. But I totally believe that this story would have caught fire. This story would have gone national. This story would have been on the NBC Nightly News with Lester Holt. They always have the first 25 minutes of the broadcast as the world is coming to an end, but the last 5 minutes is there's good news.
There's good news
And
in
they
the world.
story.
There's a happy story.
And Bun's Soapbox is a happy
It's a
story.
happy
And I
story.
think it deserved that national spotlight. And the pandemic happened, and then, other news took over the headlines, unfortunately. But
That's interesting.
but Buns is still here, and you're still thriving. And
Buns
you're,
is still here, and even when you say that, I'm reflecting in my own life, and what God has though for phase 2 for Buns took some preparation for us to be able to be ready personally, and when the pandemic happened, so many lives, right? You think, oh my goodness, this is terrible. But it ended up being really good for Ava and I. Even though it was hard, a lot has happened in our lives. We've matured a lot. We've learned a lot. The Lord has changed us drastically for the better. I think we're the better version of ourselves.
Give us a snapshot of what Buns offers, because I don't think maybe a lot of our viewers or readers don't know.
The store.
The store itself.
The store.
What do you have there?
It's all handmade. I'm a nurse by trade, and so I use my chemistry class to figure out good, balanced, all natural, handcrafted soaps, skin products, deodorants, shampoos, lip balms. Wow. The whole.
It all blossomed, hasn't it, since 2018? Yes. So it's been 5 years now.
It'll be 5 years in October.
All right. And all these products, you've learned that people naturally gravitate to, don't they?
They want it.
They want it, yeah.
They want to go back to the way we used to do it because they know now that chances are it's better.
And it is good stuff, and it smells so good.
It is good stuff. It really does help your skin not dry out or heal it if it is dry. Yeah. And so, that's been a journey in of itself. But my customers are a huge help. They tell me, hey, have you tried this? I'm like, oh, wow, that's a fascinating idea.
Tell us a little bit about Ava, if you don't mind. Just go back from the beginning, if you'd like. Just tell us what kind of person what kind of girl she is.
She is amazing. She's funny. She is, she's a problem solver. So a lot of young adults on the spectrum have to be problem solvers because they can't fit into our world like we do normally, but they have to figure out, how can I do this? How can I navigate? So problem solving is huge in her life. If I have a problem, I go to Ava.
Yeah. Oh, that's sweet.
Can you problem solve this for me? She's very intelligent, but she does struggle in social settings that she doesn't feel comfortable with. But if you prepare her or walk it out with her, then she becomes mayor of that.
Oh, I love that.
That is good.
Yes, yeah. She's a super cool kid, and I've had her since birth. She has a really great relationship with her birth mom.
Oh.
She has a biological brother, and they've become very close friends too. So she's starting to build. As she gets older, I've encouraged her to have a relationship with her biological family now. So in the state of Indiana, there are no open adoptions.
Oh.
It's actually when you sign off rights in the adoption process, you have 0 rights for the rest of their lives.
Wow.
But it was a verbal commitment that I gave the birth mom, and that was partly why she picked us. And I kept my promise. And even though it was difficult maybe in the first years, just because of the emotional struggle of walking that out, what does this look like, setting some boundaries, figuring out what feels comfortable and what feels healthy,
Right.
until Ava's old enough to be able to figure it out herself. But now we have like a really great relationship.
How did Ava respond to that process early on?
She didn't know any different.
Okay.
You know, in fact, this is so funny because just this past week we were driving in the car and I said, you know, not all parents tell their kids they're adopted. Yeah. And I said, that's a choice that we have to make. And I said, how would you have handled that if I would have waited until like you were 18 or something? She looked at me and she goes, I am so glad you didn't do that.
Oh,
That's what I meant.
Yeah,
Because she could have had resentment. She could have had some disappointment. She could have thought of lost years, which I've been told by other adopted kids. Like, why didn't you tell me 10 years ago? I could have acted on that, right?
Right. And she said it would have been a trust thing for her too then. Like, how can I trust you if you didn't trust me with this information?
Yes.
And so thankfully, those choices were good to not, for her and for the family. And I don't want her birth mom was so young when she had Ava. I don't want her to have to, what's the word? Suffer because of a difficult time in her life. It was the hardest thing that woman has ever done in her life, right?
Absolutely.
And I want her to be able to enjoy Ava and the benefits of having 2 moms that love her.
That is a benefit, isn't it? Yeah.
It's a huge benefit.
Was that part of your ideal plan early on, or is that too even hard to conceive that back then?
It was day one.
You had that vision.
It was day one.
Wow, that's amazing. You could have that vision.
It was day one. I remember when we went up to the hospital to pick Ava up, and I always tried to process what she was thinking too.
Sure.
Instead of, I was living in some fear, you know. I was taking a child and falling in love.
Yes.
And then there were stories of bad things that could happen and, you know, all those things you have to process. But I was trying to process what she was possibly thinking and trying to put myself in her shoes. And so when I went to go up to get Ava that day and bring her home, I realized that she could possibly never see her again. And I would have her for life, depending on how it all played out, right?
Sure.
And so I thought, I'm not going to take from her the things that she didn't want to have to give up. And those things were putting her in the wheelchair to carry Ava down instead of me.
Oh, wow.
Or inviting her, because once the papers were signed, it was like, okay, birth mom, you can leave now.
How cool
Right?
is that?
Right?
Yeah,
This
exactly.
woman, she loves this baby. And that's when I just said, would you like to stay? Would you like to help me put her outfit on? Would you like to come
What a
and
gesture.
take,
I know.
What a
that is
gesture of
an
love,
incredible
yeah.
gesture.
you know, help me with the pictures and, you know, all these things. And that is where the trust started between the birth mom and I. Was fearfully accept, right?
Yeah,
I was
right.
fearfully
Of course.
Right. That's honest of you to say
inviting
that.
her into that space and trusting that it would all work out.
So it's not just a small business. Of course, you want to support small business, support all
Sure.
small business, please. But your business, I mean, truly gives back and gives purpose to these individuals, and it really is a beautiful thing to see. Because when you go into your store, I mean, you see them at work.
Right.
You know, I mean, you see how it's all made. And
Right.
And it really is a
It does have the
beautiful thing.
aroma of inclusiveness, doesn't it? Because you
Yeah.
walk in, you see it, you feel it, you smell it. Obviously, you know that. When
There's so many senses when
yeah.
you walk in.
Jamie, what's the update on Buns these days? What are you doing? What kind of products are you offering?
Oh, my.
Who's there at the house or the business and that kind of thing?
We are transitioning, so my hours are more limited for a lot of various reasons. My first decision in making that, so we're only open on Fridays and Saturdays now, whereas before I was open Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday.
Wow.
And I knew my time with Ava was closing in, as she's going to be, she's 17 this year. And so I wanted to seize more time with her for sure. That was one of the main reasons why I made that change. But also, we are starting to transition to a second vision that we had, and it's a nonprofit side to Bun Soapbox. And we have launched that. We have a board of directors now. We've hired a gentleman from Texas who's flying in next month, and he will help us develop an all-inclusive living resort for special needs individuals to live independently here in Valparaiso.
That was your dream, wasn't it?
That was the second part.
Amazing.
Oh
Yes,
my
yes,
gosh.
yes.
What do you want from this vision? You told me this 3 years ago, and you had this idea, and now it's 3 years later, and it's kind of happening.
Right.
What do you want to see from this vision? What do you want to culminate from this?
All of us, the entire board, so what happens when autistic young adults graduate from high school, they go into isolation. They don't really have a social network. There's not really anything out there for them to stay connected, and it's awkward for them.
Sure.
It's not their normal go-to. If you can combine work and living and what they do outside of just socially in the same environment, that becomes their community naturally. So it would be working there, having purpose, having friends, living independently, and that's what their parents want too.
Yes.
They want to know that when they're gone, that they have a place that they can call home. And it certainly isn't an institutionalized residential facility that makes parents feel comfortable to say goodbye. They want we want to create a space where people are jealous that they don't have autism instead of sad
That's a beautiful
of where
vision,
Jen.
somebody might have to go after their parents pass or can't care for them or whatever. So
What's the next step for this to make this a reality?
So this gentleman we've hired, he has created 5 others in the nation, but this will be the first one in the Midwest. And we got connected through some friends in Michigan who have a special needs individual for their son is. And so he has written a 6-month proposal. It's intense. It's very
gotta be.
intense.
It's intense.
And then from there, once we get to that place, then we'll probably reevaluate and write another 6-month proposal. But he's pretty confident that within a year we won't need him anymore, and it will be up and running and functioning.
Really?
So,
Where in Valpo? Do you have the land already?
yes, it's actually the land I grew up on as
No
a child.
kidding.
What a dream.
Yes.
Really coming full circle, isn't
yes.
it?
And it's
Yeah.
for sale. So, I mean,
This
that's
is
just
perfect.
crazy,
Oh my
right?
gosh.
Right?
Happen, yeah,
And
right.
even just as we step out in faith, that he constantly is doing more and more to validate that we're on the right track. It's not like we're struggling to walk it out. It seems as if as we start to walk it out, it has become easier and the doors just keep opening. So I don't know how it's all going to work. I tell people all the time, I don't know what I'm doing, but that's the beauty of it,
Yeah.
is he will do it, and we just have to follow.
And how about one more question about Ava? What is her role with the vision, the dream, the
Yeah.
business on a daily basis? What is she doing with
It's
her
a
life
great
right
question. So right now, as 17 is that funny age, right?
Yep.
And you want to figure things out on your own.
now? Right?
So she actually works for another business downtown.
Does she really?
And she came to me and she said, Mom, I want to try this. And I said, I think it's a great idea, sis. And she absolutely loves it. So I'm letting her
You
figure
have to.
it. You have
have
to.
to.
Oh, yeah.
We've
hard
learned
that you
as
have to.
parents.
Oh, I want, yes.
Yeah, that's one of the
I will-
themes we have on She Said, He Said is parenting and how difficult it is. There's nothing harder.
No,
At least
I
in my
agree.
life, there's nothing harder than parenting.
I
I can get a
agree.
job, I could work, I can make money.
Right.
Relationships either come and go or you work out. But parenting, and it never
Parenting.
ends.
It's a thing.
It's so
Right.
hard for you to have that kind of foresight for your daughter.
Mm-hmm.
Like, fine, you have to let them go so they come back, that kind of thing. Oh, it's so
Absolutely.
difficult to do.
And she is very talented in photography, and she's starting to pursue it. And she prayed about it, and she said, Mom, I think God wants me to be a photographer. And I said, I think you're right.
Yeah.
And a lot of people, when she started speaking it out, started confirming, oh my word, I've thought that before. I think that's a great idea. And so it'll be interesting how God will use the photography.
Okay, so
Yeah,
question
sure.
time? Okay,
10
so
questions.
10 questions.
Okay.
And these are just they're not.
Cheesy.
They're not. Well, yeah, they're kind of cheesy,
Well,
but they're a little thought
It's
provoking.
gotta be cheesy. It's you, guys.
Oh my God. Okay, touche, Jamie, touche. Yes.
Okay, the first one is super easy. So, what is your full name?
Full name.
Jamie Lynn Fankhauser,
And where were you born?
Valparaiso.
And what are your parents' names?
What? I'm sorry.
These are the questions.
Larry and Cheryl.
And what did they do for a living?
They're retired.
But what did they do?
What did they do?
Yes.
My father was a construction. He owned his own construction company. My mom was a stay-at-home mom.
Okay. And what is your favorite word?
Is it supposed to come easier than that?
No, not at all.
They're just like,
Extraordinary.
oh, good.
Wow.
What is your least favorite word?
Fart.
That's great.
The word and the sound. I guess all of the above.
What sound or noise do you love?
Cardinals.
Oh, really?
Singing.
Oh, I love
In the
that.
morning.
What sound or noise do you hate?
When somebody's taking something out of the freezer and it rubs up against the ice and it makes that screechy,
Really?
crackly noise.
I love
Yes, I
that.
run out of the room.
I never would have heard of that.
What profession, other than your own, would you like to attempt?
Nutritionist.
Oh, good. What profession would you not like to attempt?
A doctor.
Last question. When you arrive at the pearly gates, what would you like them to say to you?
Well done, my good and faithful servant.
Oh, my God.
Oh, of course, Jamie.
That's beautiful. That gives me goosebumps.
I have it hanging on my bathroom mirror.
Oh, do you really? So you see it every day?
I say it every day.
Oh.
That's my goal.
And you're living
In
it
life.
every day,
You are
too.
living it every single day.
You really are.
You are someone to
Well,
really...
not every moment.
Well,
No, I didn't say every moment. I said every day.
Day. There's a lot of moments in the day.
Yeah.
But every day, you are truly someone to look up to.
Yeah, that's why we wanted to
Someone
have
to
you on
admire.
our show.
Well, thank
for
you,
that
you
reason
guys.
alone. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
thank you so much. And thank
Thank
you for
you.
we just wanted to get your message and just your humble little shop gives so much back. And we just
Thank you.
we just want the world to know.
Yes.
You've been listening to She Said, He Said with Karen and Jerry Davich, sponsored by Times Media Company and Lee Enterprises, and recorded at Creative Space in downtown Hobart. Find us at nwi.com and where you find all your podcasts.
If you enjoy our show, we hope you return with your own viewpoints about couples, relationships, and the subtle or not so subtle differences between spouses, mates, partners, and potential partners. We welcome your opinions, your experiences, and especially your love lessons.